Saint Germain took up the explanation of several important phases on the application of higher laws for the manifesting of one's own inherent dominion over the things of the sense world. This led to how he was able to express such youth and perfection in a body so old, according to the way human beings count time. Eternal youth, he explained, is the flame of God abiding in the body of man, the Father's gift of himself to his creation. Youth and beauty of both mind and body can only be kept permanently by those individuals who are strong enough to shut out discord, and whosoever does that can and will express perfection and maintain it. Where peace, love, and light do not abide within the thoughts and feelings of a human being, no amount of physical effort can possibly keep the outer self expressing youth and beauty. These exist eternally within the God flame, which is the divine self of every individual. Whatever discord the outer self allows to flash through the thought and feeling is that instant stamped upon the flesh of the physical body. Eternal youth and beauty are self-created and forever self-existent within the flame of God's life in every human being. This is God's plan for manifesting His perfection into the world of form and maintaining it forever. Youth, beauty, and perfection are attributes of love, which the God Self is continually pouring forth into its creation. Within each individual is placed the power and means for maintaining and increasing that perfect, ever-expanding activity of creation. The power of accomplishment is the energy of the God Self in each human being born into the world. It is always active every moment in your mind, body, and world. There is no instant in which this mighty energy is not flowing through all individuals. You are privileged to qualify it as you please at the command of your own free will, through consciously directed thought and feeling. Thought is the only thing in the universe that can create vibration, and through vibration you qualify this ever-flowing energy with whatever you desire to have manifest in your life and world. This limitless, intelligent, radiant energy is flowing ceaselessly through your nervous system, and is the eternal life and vitality in the bloodstream coursing through your veins. It is an all-powerful, omnipresent, intelligent activity given you by the Father, the God principle of life, to be consciously directed according to your free will. Real intelligence, which uses everything constructively, comes only from within the God principle, the flame of life, and is not merely the activity of the intellect. Real intelligence is wisdom, or God knowledge, and this does not and cannot think wrong thoughts. Wrong thoughts come only from impressions made upon the intellect by the world outside of the individual. If individuals would discriminate between their own thoughts, that is, thoughts from within the God flame, and the suggestions thrown off by other people's intellects, and the evidence of the senses, which consider appearances only, they would be able to avoid all discordant activities and conditions in the world of experience. The light from within one's own God flame is the criterion, the standard of perfection, by which all thoughts and feelings that reach us through the five senses should be tested. No one can keep his thoughts and feelings qualified with perfection unless he goes to the source of perfection, for that quality and activity only abide within the God flame. This is the individual's need for meditation upon and communion with the light of God within himself. Pure life essence will not only give and sustain eternal youth and beauty in the body, but will enable you to maintain perfect balance between your God self and the outer or personal self. In fact, this pure life energy is the power which the outer self uses to hold its connection with its divine source, the God Self. In reality, these two are one, except when the intellect, or outer activity of the mind, the sense consciousness, accepts imperfection, inharmony, incompleteness, or thinks itself a creation apart from the all-pervading one presence of life. If the sense consciousness thinks itself something separate from God, perfection, then that condition is established unto it. For what the sense consciousness thinks into its world, the world returns to it. When one lets an idea of imperfection or separation from God occupy his attention, and therefore his mind, a condition corresponding to that begins to express itself in his body and world. This causes the person to feel himself an entity apart from his source. The moment he thinks himself separated from God, he thinks his life, intelligence, and power has beginning and end. Life always has been, is now, and always will be. No one can really destroy life. Through various activities in the mental and physical world, form can be disintegrated or temporarily demolished, but the consciousness of the individual is eternal and can control all substance everywhere in manifestation when the God life within is acknowledged as the knower, giver, and doer of all good in creation. I tell you truth when I say there is only one source of all good, God. The conscious recognition and acceptance of this truth, acknowledged by the outer activity of the mind, not 2 or 3 times a day, but every few moments all day long, no matter what the outer self is doing, and this maintained will enable anyone to express his perfect freedom and dominion over all things human. To most people, the above sounds difficult, for they have lived so many centuries in the belief that they are beings apart from God, while every instant of every day they are using God life, God energy, God substance, and God activity in everything they think and do without realizing it. However, it requires the conscious admitting of this fact in the outer activity of the mind and constructive direction to release its full power through the personal self. Recognition, conscious direction, and constructive use of the God energy maintained within oneself at all times is the way of perfection, mastery, and dominion over all things on earth, including the conscious control of all natural forces. The instruction I have been giving you will erase completely all false beliefs, if maintained. The rapidity with which it is accomplished depends upon how continuously, persistently, and deeply you feel and associate with your God self. In the attainment of mastery or adeptship, the conscious control of all force and manipulation of substance are dependent first upon the acknowledgement of your own individual God self, second, upon perfect calmness of feeling under all circumstances, and third, one must be above all temptation of misusing power. The stilling of all emotions at the command of the conscious will is imperative, and the demand for it in the adept is unconditional, if dominion is to be attained. It does not mean a repression of discord within oneself at any time, but is a stilling and harmonizing of the feelings, no matter what the circumstances are which surround the mind or body of the student. Such control is not an easy thing for humanity in the Western world, because the temperament of most people in the Occident is sensitive, emotional, and impulsive. This characteristic is energy of tremendous power. It must be controlled, held in reserve, and released only through conscious direction for the accomplishment of something constructive. Until the waste of energy is checked and completely governed, the individual cannot and never will make permanent progress. The student often asks if one reaches a point, while still on the path of attainment, where he rises above the use of affirmation. When an individual sincerely uses affirmation, he brings about a full acceptance of the truth of whatever he affirms. For its use is but to focus the attention of the outer mind so steadily upon the truth that he accepts it fully in his feelings because feeling is the actual God energy released, which manifests the truth affirmed. The continued use of affirmation brings one to the point where he has such a deep realization of the truth in anything he affirms that he is no longer conscious of it as an affirmation. One uses an affirmation, mantra, or prayer because he desires something made manifest. Right desire is the deepest form of prayer. Thus, by the use of affirmation, the student raises his outer self into the full acceptance of its truth and generates the feeling by which it becomes a thing manifest. In this deep acceptance comes the manifestation, for through concentration, the spoken word begins to cause instantaneous activity.